As you know, in the Gospel of St. John, there is this battle going on from beginning to end between light and darkness, and in this conversation between the Jews and the Lord, which lasts all these days that lead up to the Passion, we see the Lord bit by bit indicating where the real problem is, but it also applies to us. He uses different ways of saying the same thing. He calls them what they are, quite clearly, saying that their father is the other guy, whereas they're claiming to be the sons of Abraham. And the reason why he's saying such strong things is precisely because he can see what's in them. And often it's useless dialoguing with a person who actually has a problem which is not the one he's talking about. We'll waste time. The Lord is getting to the real issue, the inside, bad will. And when we talk to somebody, fairly quickly we can detect whether that's the case or not. E.g., if you're talking to somebody about something to do with the faith, they'll make all kinds of noises. But the problem is they don't want to face something. Also, if one listens to what they're saying, quite often they'll throw stones at the Lord in the form of the church. But what's going on really is this. They're living bad lives and they're pulling out a useful excuse for not going to church. So it's the same thing in a different form. In part of this conversation, we have a very strong word which is a warning also to us, each one of us. None of us is excluded. We had the other day this warning about being in bondage. Anyone who commits sin is in bondage to that sin. Now, I just want to attack this because it's more prevalent than we actually think, and it's for everyone on this planet. It can be of a different severity for each one, but there's something there for each of us. First of all, the big ones. One day I was shocked by something I found on YouTube that had happened some years ago in Korea. It was an artist who had been allowed to sort of die. A dish came out of a body, it seems, and was shown the other side. But because she was a very talented artist and also had faith, the Lord wanted her to see certain things, but on this condition, that when she came back, she put it in pictorial, that is, artist's form. She was a brilliant painter, and she obeyed. So, the result can be seen on YouTube. And if you are that way inclined, all you've got to do is go into YouTube and type something like Korean artist sees hell. And it goes into what is actually cause and effect. And this is one big one, bondage. And there's more going on than actually we think. Now I'll try and simplify it. She is shown that for everything that we get into bondage with here, there's a consequence, obviously in this life, but then it leads into the other thing on the other side if it's not handled, if it's a severe one. And she's very explicit and very modern, because everything there corresponds perfectly to reality as we see it. Bondage is this. It's when we're not free. The will that can't command anymore, that's like a flower which is drooping, no backbone, is of no use. It can't steer, it can't drive, it can't command. The boat, the wagon is out of control because the will is not at the driving seat. Now look at people in the world. Is it or is it not true that that's actually what's going on? Why? Other things have taken over the power of resolution. The will is not commanding. Why? Other things are. I remember seeing years ago a picture of a man clinging on to a huge syringe. indicating that he was completely in bondage to this syringe, and he was tiny on this massive syringe. That was commanding him. Is that fairly true? For a vast proportion of people now, it's massive. The brain, therefore, is no longer able to command, it's being commanded. But that actually is not just to do with drugs, and she was shown these things. The television. She was shown how one way the demons got into control of the will, and actually into the person if it's severe enough, was through the possibility of a screen to be a channel of communication between demons and the soul. Now, it's got not better but worse, because now it's not just screens of television, but all kinds of screens that are easily available to all kinds of ages and very young. And therefore the demon is very much able to come in and take control of the will, and even the person, through screens. But there were others which were quite surprising. She was shown how also demons could come in through substances, note, even smoking. I was quite surprised at this one, but there's a control through smoking. The liberty is taken away through bondage. It's very difficult to get a person to give up smoking. I had a young girl with me the other day. Please pray over me to get over my addiction of smoking. She just couldn't do it herself. But then, this next bit corresponds to what I've heard fairly recently from talking to experts, including an exorcist. Do you know that when there's a shipment of powerful drugs from Colombia, these Latin American countries, something happens? So as to get the most out of them as regards hoarding money, it's a lucrative business, millions, they do something awful at every big shipment. They call in somebody who's into Satanism, witchcraft. And there's a ritual of invoking the maximum of satanic damage and power and curses on this shipment. So there'll be all kinds of people completely taken in, brought under the influence of Satan through these now cursed drugs. That is, a curse put upon them. Not a blessing, as we do at meal times, but a curse. So, this exorcist was explaining to us, and he knew what he was talking about because he's living in America, and he was actually Hispanic himself, but had good English, and an exorcist. And he was telling us, therefore, when you have people seriously into drugs, often it's not enough to get them off the thing as such, because there's contamination also in their soul. The demons have got in through these curses, and big drugs are not just drugs. They're infested with something far more powerful than we can imagine. Therefore, can you see why whole societies, whole families, whole schools, and now, of course, even the traveling community, they're completely upset by this power which they don't know how to handle. It's not just the substance itself, it's all that goes with it. I'll just do one more because I can go on and on and on. Impurity. Now, respectable people, people that we wouldn't imagine, can be in the privacy of their room at night on a big or a small screen when nobody sees them, doing things which years ago were only left to really awful people, like people watching these glossy magazines. Now anyone, any respectable person can be also addicted with this too. And you start on that one and it's very difficult to get out of it. Why? The demon takes over through these images, the functioning of the brain, and research has been done into it. This stuff here, hard porno, is powerful in actually changing the way the brain functions. In such a way it becomes what we used to call a one-track mind. It's in bondage. It can't control its thinking. What's in there stays in there. So for you growing up, beware. Beginnings check and consequences follow.